So welcome, welcome, welcome. So Trailblazer and Origins, people often ask us, how did the idea for Trailblazer come about and what is kind of the inspiration around it? Look, it all started about 3 years ago when I was invited to keynote at Woodside and on a diversity and inclusion panel. I was kind of like the opening act, and I was asked to share my views on what's really going on. So, I'd previously given some talks about the cry for help from the glass cliff, trying to give women voice and exposure to some real clear strategies and ideas around how to kind of step into their power and really start to shift the dial on this conversation. So that's where it had begun. I'd also written a book called Bitch Fight, and which was about, really talking about how women actually get in each other's way in the gender equality conversation and what we needed to be mindful of and really starting to see some meaningful change. So I stood up on the platform, 600 people, mainly women, so probably around 90% women, 10% men in this audience of around 600 in their auditorium. And I asked the audience this one question. I said, who here would describe themselves as a pioneer? And I waited. 600 people in the room. Probably around 10 people put their hands up. 5 of them were men and 5 of them were women. That was absolutely daunting and shocking to me, because from where I was standing on that stage, every single woman in that room was a pioneer. The fact that they were sitting there in the audience, working as professionals at Woodside in 2017 was already testament to the fact that they were pioneers in their own right. How many women would have been sitting in that audience at Woodside 50 years ago? Not that many, I can tell you that right now. But the fact that all these women sitting in this room did not identify with the word pioneer to describe themselves simply by existing and working at Woodside in this very day and age was troubling to me. From there, through the work that we were doing in the diversity and inclusion space, and particularly through the work of Bitch Fight, I was asked by some very senior women in banking and finance to actually lead the way to develop a program for women like no other. One that particularly focused on helping women step into their own uniqueness, learn the context that they are operating in and the skills to bring together head, heart, and hands through skill builds to really start to get some traction and create the life that they want for themselves, both personally and professionally. And that's how Trailblazer was born. So the session today is really talking a little bit about the impetus for the program, but also going into the nitty-gritty about what the program entails, what you can expect to receive, and what you can expect to evolve into, and how you can expect to develop as a participant on this real groundbreaking program. Just a minute. But I'll hand over now to my colleague, Dr. Marnie Lishman, to get on to the next piece.
Excellent. All right. So, yeah, just a bit of a public health warning here with this funny little slide. So this presentation does contain some stereotypes about men and women, so please don't take offence. It's just an important conversation we're having today, and yeah, there's some accidental stereotypes, but I'm sure it's all with good humour. All right, next slide, please, B. Okay, so Trailblazer is an epic inclusive leadership program for women that is like no other. And when I say like no other, I mean like no other. It's run by 2 psychologists with probably about 40 years experience between us. I know we look very young, who would have thought there's 40 years experience between us, but there is. But we're going to be taking our female program participants on a huge personal and professional transformational journey with the help of some extremely successful male and female mentors and key thought leaders and speakers who will be assisting us along the way. But we'll talk to you a little bit more about that later. Our why. So we are in a different world, a fast-paced, volatile, uncertain, modern world. And rather than backing away from this, like many people do, there are some of us out there who are ready to step right into it and not only learn to ride the waves, but start creating the future for themselves. And the thing is that women have some natural traits that they already have that can help them move more and align more easily with this way of thinking. And they're traits that have often been pushed aside and pushed probably into the shadow self that really need to be brought forward and be brought out to play in this new world. So we really believe that women, if they stepped into themselves fully, they're game changers and they can lead powerfully in times of volatility and uncertainty, probably in better ways than men sometimes. So we really want to help our participants shift the dial in their life and their work and create a pathway forward that aligns with not only themselves, but also so they can just bring it to the world. This program was born out of the need to support those strong pioneering women to step into their personal power. And we acknowledge that not everyone wants to be a trailblazer, but being trailblazers ourselves, Vanessa and I, we know that there's a stirring, like an inner knowing, a yearning, a small flickering of light inside many women. If there was nothing to stop them, they would be doing so much more and bringing it out into the world. And that's who we're targeting here.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way. That's a great way to introduce that, Marnie. And I think to your point around, you know, one of the key mottos that Marnie and I have on the program is copy no one. It's not about trying to emulate or be someone other than you're not. And often that's a really scary place to play. You often feel like, well, I'm not good enough, or I don't have the skills, or I don't have the capabilities. This is about a real journey of self-acceptance. It's about an elucidation of who you are and everything that you bring to the table, and saying, I'm actually going to stake my claim and be who I am without apology to lead my way. And that leads us into then authenticity as well.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage to do that.
It does.
But we'll be helping you with that. We'll be helping our participants with that. All right, so who's leading this amazing program? Well, I'll just speak for myself here. So I'm Dr. Marnie Lishman, and I work with professional individuals and corporate groups, and I speak on a wide variety of topics to promote mental health and wellbeing and help people facilitate personal and professional growth in themselves. So I'm passionate about increasing people's psychological capacity to design and create the life that they dream about, despite all those life challenges that get thrown at us. So I'm the one that gets into the deep diving process with people and get them to align with their true selves and to create a better life. Over to you, Vivi.
Thanks, Marnie. So I'm probably the more hardcore person in the tag team. My background is as a business psychologist. So I guess one of the benefits of the program as well, and one of the very intentional design elements, is that this is a whole of person approach. So I talked before about the mind, the heart, and the hands. And so what that's about is bringing a corporate psychologist, so a business psychologist who understands the world of work and has been a coach and working with strategy, large-scale, small-scale organisations, working with individual leaders, teams, and also working on the systemic part of business, and more recently, particularly in the last 4 years, with startups and Silicon Valley organisations, particularly in tech, although my background is across every industry you can imagine, even toilet paper manufacturing, and that's a story for a few drinks at our first sundowner. So bringing that knowledge of the world of work and business and psychology and combining that with the power of Dr. Marnie Lishman around health and wellness, resilience and sustainability, so that we can also introduce the soul element within the program, because we understand, to Dr. Marnie's point, around it's thriving professional and it's thriving personal life as well. So we can't extricate those two sides of self. They are inextricably linked, and there will be spillover. Whatever work that you do in the Trailblazer program professionally will spill over into your personal life. So how are we aligning those different parts of self? And so it's a real match made in heaven. And I'm so joyous and privileged that Marnie has agreed to co-host Trailblazer with me this year. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. So thank you, Marnie. Thank you. So Marnie talked about current context, and the way I like to describe the world that we're currently in right now, and God, given where we are right now, we've just gone into lockdown, great example of the ebbs and flows of life. If you speak to most people and ask them how they're feeling right now, and even before this most recent lockdown, they'll tell you that life feels like a permanent roller coaster, one that they can't get off. And so what's happening is it's turning many of us into the worst version of ourselves, commanding, overwhelmed, distracted. The stress that comes from facing constant change and disruption is actually really affecting our ability to perform in the working context, but also have a fulfilling and happy personal life. And that's the reality. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter about your geography, what line of work you're in. Everybody is struggling to keep up with the pace of change and adapt and learn and present and be their best self when it matters the most. And I love this quote by Joe Burton, CEO of Wool Concepts. We are experiencing life at the rate of several WTFs per minute. That is the reality. So what does that mean then in terms of how we step in as leaders and as women? What does that mean in terms of how we actually have a voice at the top, how we get a voice around that table and be part of the change and leading the change and being part of, really creating a new reality for ourselves? Well, the answer to begin in the gender conversation particularly starts in our psychoevolutionary roots. And I love to use this slide to ask you to spot the difference. Which team are you on? Is there a difference between chimp A on the left and chimp B? Does anybody know? And the answer is yes. On the left, we have your standard garden variety chimp, but on the right, we have the bonobos. Now, the bonobo chimps, for those who aren't familiar, is the chimp species with whom human beings share 98.5% of our DNA. And here's the interesting factoid about bonobo chimps. Bonobo chimps is a chimp society that is governed and ruled by the females of the tribe. What's fascinating about this tribe is that they are displaying and known for characteristics like altruism, compassion, democracy, and empathy. And that when there is a conflict or a disagreement, they choose to make love and not war. Now, I want you to imagine this context for a second, because what it shows us is the possibility of what could happen if we truly lived in a society where we're able to build a community of equals, with women having equal rights to men and equal representation, if not leading more in the society that we're living in. What could be possible? So imagine if we had more women represented at the top. What would that mean for our ability to actually lead the world? An interesting concept and rather romantic, I know. But what we do need to be aware of is that even though there has been a huge spotlight on diversity and inclusion, and it feels as if there is more traction in the gender equality conversation, we are still moving along glacially. It is still 226 years that we have to wait before women are actually playing an equal role to men in equalising the gender playing field and playing an equal role in the gender labour economy. That's the reality. And that's why Trailblazer was born, to try and help those women who actually want to trailblaze, who actually want to lead the way, to clear the path to be able to do so, so that we can actually start to have a very different experience of life at work and at home. So, unfortunately, the word feminism is still a dirty word. And as I said before, whilst we may feel like we are getting traction, we aren't. So, when this became an absolutely shocking to me is when I saw the recent article that came out, which showed that not only is feminism still a dirty word, but there is even a word for it in the new dictionary, which is feminazi. I know, unbelievable, isn't it? Also describing a radical feminist. Now, I don't know about you, but I find it amazing that a term that has been coined to really represent people who want to see parity between men and women be associated with fascist terror during the Holocaust. Yet that's what is still being happening. And there is still a reaction when you say you're a feminist and you believe in gender equality. There's still this type of reaction that we're seeing even in today's day and age. And that's not where it stops. So did you know that there are few women in top roles and there are men called John, Peter or David leading Australian businesses? Now, there has been some movement at the station, particularly in the education sector and the public service, where 40% of senior leadership roles and leadership roles are currently adopted by women. So there has been some traction there. However, CEOs are generally still male dominated. There are still only 10 women in ASX 200 listed organisations in board roles. And we are seeing a little bit more traction in the mining, so thank you, Andrew, and the construction sectors, but still not enough to really shift the dial. The reality is that, particularly in an age of disruption, women are uniquely positioned to excel. Some research put out by Caliper, over 2,500 organisations globally, and thousands of men and women showed that women are actually uniquely positioned to excel. And there is a natural hardwiring to be very successful leaders, particularly given the disruption that we're facing. So they were found to be more assertive and persuasive, have a stronger need to get things done, be naturally more adaptable, hardwired to be empathic and flexible, natural collaborators, and that's a very important one, and to have comparatively much stronger interpersonal skills in an age where we actually need those to be able to lead others, particularly during trying times. Some of the other barriers to success that we've seen that get in the way and that we actually deal with as part of the Trailblazer program. Now, this is not me talking. This is absolutely linked to stats and research. Women seen as less dependable due to motherhood. Yes, absolutely. We are still facing stigma and bias based on those of us who do want to have children. I'll never forget, in my own personal experience, being called into a performance development meeting with my boss at the time and in my executive role in Canada. And at that point, I was early 30s, and him saying to me, Vanessa, we're so happy that you're part of our firm. You're not going to go off and do stupid things like the other women in our business and get pregnant. We see you as having a really, really successful future with our organisation. I'm not joking. This is what he said to me, he who shall not be named. And by the way, we had our performance review over a glass of whiskey at a bar in downtown Montreal. So I'll leave you to cast your own judgments over that. Women are typically viewed as less visionary. Being seen as multitaskers is absolutely detrimental. You know, and this is because typically women tend to be given the more administrative functions or tasks. Because of the view of us as competent multitaskers, as the organisers of the sexes, and because we don't necessarily put our hands up for leading those transformational change initiatives, for leading those brave projects that are going to showcase us as being able to affect real transformation in our businesses. So when you are in those leadership development workshops and the facilitator says to you, okay, we'd like somebody to nominate themselves as being a scribe, please don't put your hand up for those tasks. Every time we run leadership workshops, it's the woman who says, that's okay, I will scribe for the day. It's actually hurting us putting our hands up. Wait for the man to put his hand up. Let him be seen as the multitasker. Be mindful of what even the simple action of doing things like that is doing to actually hurt our view and being seen as us as visionary and able to do so much more. We're overlooked. So many women that we work with aren't comfortable self-promoting or talking about their strengths. And look, there's a reason for that. Often when we're in the spotlight, we not only make ourselves a target and get penalised harshly for stumbles, but we're seen as aggressive or overly ambitious. Most recently, Marnie and I were running a workshop with a group of senior academics who were trying to run some strategy for the future. One of the academics, who was a female, got up and started talking about her social media work that she's doing, what she's doing to actively get her department more in the spotlight to try and actually get funding. In the break, the dean of that department came up to myself and Marnie and said, can you believe it? She's always trying to grab the spotlight. It's so embarrassing. I stopped the dean of that department. I said, you know what? She actually is helping you. Putting herself out there, making herself a target requires bravery and skill. She's actually adapting to the new world and she's trying to get you guys funding. But this is what she was up against. I couldn't believe it. Unrealistic. You might have heard this. When going for a job, a woman will only make a play for the top role when she sees herself as meeting 90% of the criteria. A man will put himself up when he meets at least 50. What are we doing? Why do we need to be perfect? Perfectionism is an illusion, ladies and gent. What we need to be doing is striving for excellence. Perfectionism, in my view, is God's business. So let's reframe on it. Let's change the conversation that we have around that. Let's be okay with 50% of our 100 and start being bolder and taking more risks to creating the future and the life that we want. We're blocked. Typically, women are blocked at the broken rung at entry level. Big part of the impetus of the Trailblazer program is helping emerging and senior women start to lay the groundwork to set their own path and catapult into higher levels of leadership, if that's what they want. And this might be within an organisation or it might be within your own business. This is for entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs who want to do more, who want to create more, who want to be more, and want to learn how to actually blow up those roadblocks. Not being seen. This is about putting your hand up for networking, trying to actively pursue sponsorship through mentoring and active sponsorship, getting people, high-level profile, highly respected people to talk about you when you're not in the room. It's also known as advocacy. Networking not only with women, because that's hurting us. I think we've created a monster with all the women's only groups. This is also about being seen at men's events, male-dominated events, where there's actually an advantage to being the only woman in the room. take it from me. So we teach you about that. We talk to you about how do you effectively network in all the arenas? How do you seek and get advocacy and sponsorship for people to talk about you when you're not in the room? Women are also prone to extraordinary bias. Again, this is not me talking. This is not me giving my view. This is the reality. We are actually seen as less effective leaders by most men in the room. If you don't believe me, I'm about to blow your mind. I'm going to show you something that I don't think you're prepared for, and I'm sure you'll get angry when I show you the reality. In 2018, a leadership event happened, put on by Ernst & Young in New Jersey. They invited their top 200 leaders to the leadership event to try and evolve the leadership to deal with the new world. And here's what the facilitator said to them. Women's brains absorb information like pancakes soak up syrup. So it's hard for them to focus. Men's brains are more like waffles. They're better able to focus because the information collects in each little waffle square. Now you will notice the tagline or the link to the article below in the Huffington Post. Women, Ernst & Young, how to dress and act around men. Yeah, let's just let that one sink in for a second. So here's the reality, everybody listening to this. We can be emus and say that bias doesn't occur. We can be emus and say that things are different just because the spotlight is on it. Or we can say, you know what? We're going to learn about the reality of the context and the playing field that we find ourselves in. We're going to learn about the different tactics that it takes for women to be successful. We're going to learn how to best navigate in this world that we find ourselves in, not saying it should be different, but saying we understand that it is, and we're going to learn how to play and be successful in the environment that we find ourselves in so that we can change it. So that's what this is about. And just finally on this, before I hand over to Marnie, one of the biggest areas that we find women come to us for support is around salary, negotiations, and money. Being able to talk about and ask for the money we deserve. So a part of the program that we do focus on is not only financial acumen and wellness, but how to ask for what you want, utilising salary negotiations as a bit of a coaching moment to teach you how to play and get comfortable asking for what you want and need. Marnie.
All right. So we're living in a world of massive change, but opportunity. But before we lead others effectively, there needs to be an intentional shift to personal development to create new ways of thinking and behaviours to create that new flow. And like I always say to my clients, you need to be thinking about the person behind the professional first and foremost, because your business or your career or your next big social project is an extension of you, the person. And every one of us professionals has a personal story, and we often deny it or we keep it hidden, but it can get in the way of our success. And unfortunately, far too often, it can lead us to play really small in life. And we've got to remember we're all a complete package of highs and lows and successes and failures and strengths and weaknesses and bravery and fear. And all of this makes us who we are. And learning more about ourselves and learning to own it can really propel us on a journey to make a massive impact on the world. So this program will work with you to explore all parts of self so that you can acknowledge all parts of you and then be on your way to transforming into the best version of yourself. And Socrates knew a great deal of things, and he wasn't wrong when he said that humans need to get to know thyself. So it's all about getting to know ourselves, being kind to all parts of ourselves, and then bringing out our best selves. And leader health and wellbeing, it often doesn't come naturally when you're a highly driven person, when you're high achieving and you're one of those people with huge dreams and a strong work ethic and heaps of responsibilities. Often looking after yourself, your mental health and wellbeing doesn't come naturally because there's so much else going on that you often will perceive as more important. But you've got to remember that our health is the foundation that everything else in our life actually rests on. If we are not healthy as leaders, then other parts of our lives are never really sitting where we want, and we're never really feeling quite right mentally and physically. So it's all about optimal functioning, and we're going to be talking about that too. So a mentally healthy leader, they have good stress management skills. They have great social skills, so they have the ability to trust and empathize and be understood. A mentally healthy leader has a high degree of creativity. So business leaders, organisational leaders with a healthy mental state will often be more open-minded. They will possibly be more experimental with their problem-solving strategies. So you've got to remember, if we're not operating at our best, we will get in our own way. So leaders need to have the self-awareness, the self-management and discipline of their own habits so that we can be the best version of ourselves. And we'll be working on that through the Trailblazer program and getting people to evolve themselves and their leadership to really succeed in the 21st century business context. So when we learn to lead ourselves first, we're in the best place, AV, to lead other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so getting into the program details then. So this program wasn't born out of a touchy-feely feeling or something that we just decided. You know, as Marnie said earlier, we are social scientists and we've spent 4 decades working with leaders across industries, being able to help them shift from transactional to transformational and to really evolve their success in a sustainable way. And I think that word is really key to Dr. M's speaking to you around health and wellbeing as being the foundation, the inner core as being the foundation to sustainable success. And that's a really big part of it. So what you will absolutely experience during the program are 4 levels of shift: mind shift, skill shift, behavior shift, and systems shift. So a focus on the mental adaptation that you need to have to be able to reach your potential. Developing the skills, so the hands I mentioned before, what you need to do and how you need to apply it, the behaviours that people are going to see in how you manage others, which is also part of the program, and manage impressions, and then and leading the broader organisation or your business. And then what's the systems level shift and the bigger impact that you're going to actually have on the systems within your businesses, but also all around you, and even at a societal level, if that's where you want to go. Marnie?
Okay, so the Trailblazer program, what will it achieve? So there's going to be a community of inspired, connected and conscious female leaders, and we're going to be helping this group of amazing women that we're going to be working with go on that transformational journey. It's fast tracking all the things that we do with our own business clients and personal clients. We're fast tracking you. So there's a lot of learning going on, a lot of growth to get you to be future fit. We're going to be deep diving. So there's a lot of internal work to grow your strength and your confidence, to get those ideas that probably are churning inside of you and getting them out to play into the world. We're going to work heavily with you to remove all the blockers that get in the way of success, so that you can reach your full potential. Because like we just mentioned, there are so many barriers to success and there's so many things that get in the way. And a lot of that is actually to do with what's going on for us internally. So we're going to help kind of break through. So hopefully there will be, not just hopefully, there will be huge breakthroughs for you throughout the journey of this program. And yeah, being with like-minded women. There's nothing more powerful than powerful, creative women and being a part of them. So bouncing ideas off each other and being there to support each other. Never underestimate the power of that. And yeah, I think this program will achieve a massive impact, not only for each individual that participates going forward, but also just as a collective. Lifelong friends are actually my program, which is, yeah, Vanessa and I have had lots of conversations. Sometimes when you're on that pathway to success, it often can get quite lonely. So being around like-minded individuals that have got your back and can sit with you and align with your way of thinking instead of kind of poo-pooing every idea, which often people do out in the real world. If you can be amongst a group of women who are thinking the same as you and want you to be as successful and often believe in you before you believe in yourself, yeah, it doesn't happen.
That's so true, Marnie. That's so true. And I think the other piece of this as well is that, you know, what we've seen in the Trailblazer program, and I'll show you some of the results in a minute, is, you know, we will see people coming into the program and, you know, not everybody knows exactly what they want from it. They know that they need it or they want it, and there's that stirring that Marnie talked about, but they're not necessarily sure until they've had a couple of sessions what they want to get out of it. And it's incredible. It's been an incredible journey to watch how much further our participants have gone than they gave themselves credit for. So quite a number of participants coming into the program have actually left the program having built new businesses, having launched apps with a social entrepreneurship focus, going into C-suite roles for those of them who weren't in there already, gotten onto boards, into paid board roles. We've got one Trailblazer who's completely shifted career and is now leading a national STEM program for women as a result of learning design thinking tools and techniques within the Trailblazer program. So we like to set at the beginning of the program 3 goals. We ask you to set realistic goals. We like you to set stretch goals, and we like you to set impossible goals. And what we find, and not to scare you, is that most of our Trailblazers reach their impossible goal within the program. So it's quite extraordinary. We're very proud of that. You would have seen, if you've had a look at the brochure, the Trailblazer program. So we're going to start getting the program, everybody ready at the end of March. And we're closing off registrations 1st of April. We've already got quite a number of participants. So we're just kind of rounding up. We've only got 20 seats available. So we're just rounding up the last group of people within the program, followed by a welcome reception on May the 2nd. And then we're kicking off straight away with the Leadership Boot Camp on the 3rd. So 2 full-day leadership boot camps, 4 half-day learning labs included, with also all your coaching, mentoring sessions and your facilitated group learning circles. So 4 of those as well. And then finally ending the program with a pretty freaking awesome graduation party, which everybody looks forward to. Last year's was held in a diamond vault, which was, I don't know how we're going to top that one, Marnie. Here's the slide of the Trailblazer results that I mentioned earlier. And I did go through this already, but just to go through where we kind of land. What I'm really proud of is all of these, but in particular, some of the social innovation startups from women who were already running their own businesses, but also leading organizations and publishing books. this all happened on our watch, even launching a luxury dating app. So if you look at Suave Social, Patricia Newberry is actually one of our trailblazers and managed to generate 200 grand in terms of seed capital for her launch of her luxury dating app through the program. So we're pretty proud of that. We've got 6 Leader Labs as well. So you can actually get more information on this on the website. But Brave Up is the first one, which is really looking at setting the intentions and the bar for success about what it really takes to lead in this new world context. We're going to be giving you the lowdown on what you absolutely need to know about stepping into this brave new world. What do you need to know? What are the skills you need? And starting to set your goals and intentions for the next 6 months. Stand Up, which is about going really deeply into busting any bad habits you have, unlocking those bad habits, removing your armor and focusing on building a growth mindset and stepping into opportunity. So this is really the deep dive. Then we're going to go into Showing Up, which is focused on your internal core and also operating at peak performance and flow. So a real focus on adaptive leadership, but also mental health and wellness, and also looking at executive presence as well. So showing up isn't just internal, it's also about what you're emanating externally as well. So a big focus on that as well. Then we're going to launch you completely out of your comfort zone into public speaking, telling your stories to have impact and influence, working with a TEDx speaker coach and with us to really get you to start to influence with or without authority. Lab 5 is about leading alongside others. How do you get people to listen to a word you say? What do you need to know about leading teams and leading others successfully? Focusing on really unlocking that collective genius versus resting on your laurels and just standing on intellectual giftedness as a one lone wolf howling at the moon. How do we move from one to many through that collective consciousness? And then the final session, which is about entrepreneurial skills, using creative techniques and leadership to really take yourself and your teams to new levels. And we touch on design thinking in that particular session as well. And of course, within each Leader Labs, we run experiments. So at the end of each session, we get you to practically apply everything that you've learned in real world experimentation that you take to the street, that you then bring back for sharing and deep dive and debriefing in your coaching sessions, in your mentoring sessions, and in your peer learning circles. With that, you will have 4 coaching sessions with either myself or Marnie, and 4 mentoring sessions with one of our extraordinary mentors. And I'm hoping that Andrew joins us this year. You will also have, before you start the program, a deep dive into your psyche and leadership profile with either myself or Marnie through a leadership assessment to really start to set some intentions based on what you bring to the table. What are your strengths? What are the opportunities? How does that set you up for success before you even enter into a relationship with the rest of the participants and the program? And that'll be one-on-one with either myself and Marnie. Just some of the mentors that we have for this year. And again, you can get more information on this on the website. We have extraordinary leaders from across every walk of life, from resources to law, to HR, to engineering, to banking and finance, to venture capitalism, to electricity, to technology. And if we don't have a mentor that has the background and experience that you need, we will find you one. So this is not a restrictive or an exhaustive list. We have more in the background. In fact, we have more mentors than we have participants. We just didn't have room to put them all up. And they were cool with that. They're happy to be brought out and dusted off and paraded around when we're ready. So we will match you with a mentor that's going to help you really deliver on whatever the goals are that you set for yourself. The learning circles will be you having time with your peers as part of the program to actually lift each other and continue to build those skills through active dialogue, peer discussions, and peer mentorship. A big part of the Trailblazer program, which has been to, in the first session, really set an intention around your Brave project. Now, this can be putting your hand up for a particular initiative that you would like to leave that scares you crapless, or it may be yourself. So one year we had a CFO whose Brave project was herself. She wanted to get better at public speaking. She wanted to have more influence through her ability to get up and stand up in front of crowds and industry leaders and peers to really have impact through using her voice. We will determine with you what the best use of your time will be to really have something to show practically at the end of this program to either yourself or to the organisation that may be sponsoring you, and show the return on investment of your time on this program. And I showed you some of.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for being part of the webinar today. Some really important information just for you to help make a decision about whether you want to join us this year. So a couple of things following on from the Brave projects. Early bird registrations have now closed. However, we are still accepting registrations until the end of March. The price is $10,990 for doing the program over 6 months. And that includes all of the assessment tools, all of the executive coaching, all of the mentoring, all of your catering and attendance at all of the events, including wine, in addition to all the workshops as well. We are being kindly sponsored by Professor Gary Martin at AIM this year, so we're at a really beautiful venue. And we are really looking forward to hopefully having some phenomenal people just like you sign up and submit your application forms with your deposit of $500 to secure your seat, so that we can actually call you up and have a bit of a chat with you, get to know you a little bit before entering the program. There is a selection process. It's not because we don't think you're all amazing, but we are looking for a very specific type of person and character to come into Trailblazer, just because it is for the brave and you have to be ready for something new. So we want to make sure that you're safe psychologically and you're ready to really take the plunge and dive into the transformation program. So just to make sure that you're safe, you're ready psychologically, and you have the bandwidth to do the work as well, because there is quite a lot of thinking and reflection that does take place. So can't wait to hear from some of you, all of you. And again, places do close at the end of March, because we need to start doing your insights debriefs with either myself or Dr. Marnie Lishman starting in April. And then of course we have the Sundowner on May the 2nd with all of the mentors, where you'll be matched with your mentor at that point. And then first day, 1-day boot camp on May 3rd. So we actually don't have much time to go before we kick off. We don't have 20 places anymore. So if you are really keen, please get on and secure your place. And I'm so excited to meet you all. So have a great day, stay safe, and hope to hear from you soon.